Hey, so this is going to be a really quick tutorial of all the concepts we kind of talked about in class last week. So let's get started. So, there we go. So, joints is pretty much the simplest thing. It's basically a substitution for basic nodes like we would have here, where we're doing a parent of an object, and that object transfers its attributes like you would see like an orbit kind of thing. But the benefit of having the joints is that they also give you the indication of who their parent is specifically. That's indicated by this little line here, which is really nice. It helps a lot in kind of indicating whether this one is a parent or not, kind of thing. Really helpful. The big thing you want to make sure you don't do with joints at any time is scale them. That can affect a lot of the problems, and even right now you can see they've locked it for us. Next part where we're going to look at is kind of more towards what I like to call local rotation axis. This one's a big one. So the idea for local rotation axis is a joint should always point directly towards where it needs to go. So you'll see this little line here indicated off of it. Let's try and get it with the rotation. So you see this little line here that's indicating it. That's telling us it's the x-axis that's pointing down in this case. And in the ideal situation, when you want to have like another joint linking up, you want to have only one translate used. You can have two or three. It's not a bad thing, but it just makes it a little more difficult. Another reason you want to make sure the local rotation axis is aiming at it towards it like that is, say you have an elbow here. We're trying to do a rotation where we have it close in. We have a nice, soft, one variable turn for it. So that's very helpful. If we say change that local rotation axis, which I'm going to go show you how to get to that. Okay, switch to node. Where's it? Component. This game is working. Okay. Okay. So yeah, I mean we can see the X pointing directly at it for this point. If it was rotated another way, we now have more problems in trying to get it to work. But we'll figure that out later in class. Anyways, think about local rotation axis. That's a big one. The next thing we're kind of going to move on to is parenting. And as we can see in the hierarchy here, which you can always check through going to Outliner, it gives you a list here, and if you can't find what you're looking for, always just press F. It'll give you the links of what you're doing, and then from there you can see the hierarchy. So this will be big in your controls as well. You're actually going to have a hierarchy for your controls, just like this, something similar. It's just so when something moves, it moves as well. You just want to make sure that's accurate. Okay. Next thing we're going to look at is kind of constraints. These are kind of synthetic parenting situations. So like let's go over here. We see all these cubes, which are all listed here, all independent of each other. No one is a parent or a child of another one. But these synthetic links, which you can actually see on each device, so we know this one is affected. We can check that through the channel editor here. And this little indicator here tells you how much it's controlled by. So if it's controlled by 0.5% of it, it's only going to move half the distance it would when it went through. But yeah, that's the big one. So we'll kind of go over the constraints right now, which is parent, which is the easiest one. That one's 1-to-1. No matter what you do, it'll always be the same. But the important thing you want to look for in this specific case, let me just pull it up. With all of these constraints, there's a thing called maintain offset. This one's important just so you can easily understand it. You'll see it here in the specific case where I left the maintain offset on the rotation, and it kind of is different. But it's important for some things. Parents is one of the easy ones. Point is the one I had it set up to here, so it's like that, which is perfect. But let's say we take off maintain offset for this one. Okay. Constrain. Maintain offset and apply. See, now they're 1-to-1. Pretty inconvenient for what you want to do. So just keep that in mind when you're doing those situations, and then that's pretty good. Okay, next thing. Okay, so we're going to there's a lot of confusion with the IK handles for this specific case, and it is pretty weird. The best example of how I can tell you the difference between a SC solver, which is the one here, and rotation plane solver, is that the SC, if you want to say rotate the knee for this joint, we would actually have to use rotation of the end point of that IK. This can be convenient, but in the same time, you also want to have a pointer like we do for that previous model of the bear over there. It just makes it easier to have a rotation plane, but there is tools where sometimes that SC solver will be useful. Okay. Now the next one's a little hard, and we're kind of going to go over it more in class, but there's a visual tool here that allows us to kind of see what's being affected at the moment. So let's take a look at this bear real quick. And as you can see, it's not skinned at all. What we're going to do now is just do one of the skinning methods I like to do. It's a really easy tool. We go to skin, you go to bind skin, but we're actually going to change the bind method instead of closest distance, because what that does is it creates a sphere on each joint and gets all that information. So that's why we're having the cheek move here on that arm. But if we do geodesic voxel, basically it's just filling that volume up here with pretty much just voxels until it finds the proper solution. So when we bind the skin, we'll actually get a very good solution that's pretty easy to work with. It will require minimal skinning fixes for it. Oh, I have two models in here. But yeah, I mean, there is some, as you can see, which we'll actually have to clean up with the next tool, which we're going to look at, which is, let's see, is that the right one? Yeah, okay. So the next tool we're going to look at, and that's more about skinning, that's going to be paint skin weights. And this is a really important tool that you're going to learn in class tomorrow. But basically, it just goes over what joints are influencing what. So we have the hip joint here in the root, and that's affecting everything from the nether region specifically. But white and gray is kind of hard to tell, so usually you want to switch to color map. That will give you an indication of everything that's being affected for it. The basic tools, which you'll see here, is kind of more towards replace, but I feel like I'm actually getting out of time. But other than that, that's kind of the basics of what we talked about today.